It's October 23rd, 2010. Norwood Recreation Executive Director Jenny Wallace and her team of volunteers arrive at Lindner Park to set up for their annual Halloween event.
Carry these down there by where I put the food.
In its 16th year, Halloween in the park, which includes a haunted trail and a costume contest, has become something of a tradition in Norwood.
We normally set up some decorations around here, cobwebs to the trees, have a person or two behind trees, scaring. We normally don't have a lot of people to work the trail with us, so we try to space them out as much as possible.
We got to put something in that tree.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Trail, when it comes down this hill, turns to the right. Somewhere back in here, we're going to do something special for the kids this year that we haven't done before. So when the horn goes off, that light will go off on Jason?
Yeah, that light won't come on until someone passes it if I turn it on sensor.
We're doing a doctor and patient scene back here where the doctor is cutting open the patient. We use spaghetti as the guts.
Usually I have one person run from this side and another person run from this side as they walk up.
We normally use some sort of tiki torch fluid or lighter fluid or something to cause flames to come out of the top of the fire pit. Gives it a little more ooh and ah effect.
We would have had real maggots. That could have really been good.
We make the old empty pool into a graveyard scene, headstones, caskets, strobe lights, black lights, fog machines. This is the last hurrah of the trail, pretty much.
That's where we have the radios.
When night falls, these trees will harbor the ghastliest creatures imaginable, spirits of the undead, fiendish monsters, and all of them ready to scare the living daylights out of you. And all of this at no cost. But Halloween in the park isn't the only place where unsuspecting Norwood residents can be frightened for free. One house on Burwood Avenue has been scaring people for years without the benefit of Norwood Recreation and their hardworking volunteers.
I grew up in the house on the corner of Burwood and Williams, and it was rather fun. We had some interesting things happen.
Growing up, it was an adventure in the house. Things would happen very often.
I guess I'm probably one of the first ones to have noticed it, other than our parents. They used to yell at us that we were out of bed at night, but when they would get up to investigate, no one would be there, even though they had heard noises and seen shadows in the hallway.
There was all kinds of different things that you would see and hear.
Things would disappear. My grandmother had given me a bow making kit, and I always kept it in the basement on a shelf, and it disappeared. After 2 or 3 years, it showed up on the shelf where it had been before.
Ice trays used to go missing out of the freezer. When we go to get them to fill up the coolers, they wouldn't be there. And a week or so later, they'd be back in the freezer, ice still frozen.
I would wake up and hear footsteps coming through the hall, and the footsteps would go to the end of Tammy's bed, and around to Cindy's bed, and around to my bed. And you could follow them, and then they would go back out into the hallway, through the kitchen, to the back of the house. But no one was ever there.
My mother used to get migraines and get up to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, and there would be a light that would come from the bedroom and follow her in the floor to the bathroom. And I guess it was like a little guiding light to keep her from falling in the hole where my dad was remodeling to put a stairway into the family room in the basement.
When I was in high school, I used to babysit at night, and I would come in the front door, go through the house and up the steps to my room. And about 10 minutes after I would get in bed, I would hear footsteps coming up the steps. I would look and no one would ever be there.
It was one night I was awoke by something in my room.
she hollered for me to come in her room, and she sounded a little stressed, so I went in there, and just as I turned the corner of her room, there was a figure. It was just a white figure.
They had long hair, there was no descriptive face, and she saw it also before it disappeared.
In my room, my friend and I saw it was like a man standing there. He had on a pair of jeans and like a plaid flannel shirt, but he wasn't there because you could see right through him. You could see my dresser and the whole thing right behind him. It was just like a see-through person standing there.
And we also started noticing in one spot in the living room there was a tobacco odor, and it was just like a wall. You could step one step and smell it, take another step, and nothing, no trace of it.
I had this little Chinese lamp that hung from my ceiling light, and we would be like, okay, turn to the left, and it would turn to the left real slow. And I'd say, turn to the right, and it would turn to the right real slow.
There was another time our grandmother, who's passed away now, spent the night at our house, and she said someone or something came in and sat down on the edge of the bed. She thought it was me, so joking, she took her elbow and poked, and whatever it was left. And she said that the bed had actually indented while it was sitting there. Later, she put the covers down to the foot of her bed, and the covers came right back up around her neck.
My dad used to say that he would, mainly on like New Year's Eve, I believe it was, and like Christmas Eve, holidays, things like that, he would feel someone sit on the side of the bed, and you could see the indentation on the side of the bed, and he would smell this really, really strong alcohol smell. And my parents never drank, so it was a very strong smell when you did smell it. And he said that it was like someone just sat down on the side of the bed and had the strong alcohol odor, and he would elbow him and tell him to get off his bed, and he'd hear him fall into the floor like someone had just been pushed off the bed.
One of our brother's friends spent the night, and I think he was asleep in the basement on the couch or something.
And he put his arms up over his head to stretch. And when he looked up, he saw 3 arms instead of 2.
Scared him half to death. He screamed, jerked his hands out, and his class ring actually went flying off his hand. Couldn't find it for a long time, and it had gone with such force that it had hit the wall and gone down underneath the carpet.
My mother was cooking one time, I remember, and she opened the cabinet to get the salt out of the cabinet. She didn't even touch it. She just opened the cabinet door and then went to reach up onto the next shelf, and it just came out, sat up straight, and went right down to the counter and sat down. Nice and neat, like someone had picked it up and put it on the counter for her. But there was nobody there but me and her.
It was interesting growing up in that house.
We call him Charlie, but actually we don't know if it's male or female or if it actually is.
Every once in a while you get creeped out, but for the most part it wasn't ever really scared or anything because it never do anything to hurt anybody. It was like a trickster joke. He would play, little guessing games with us, hide things and see how long it would take us to find them, if ever.
But we were never afraid. It was not something scary. It was just a presence that was there, and I don't think any of us were ever afraid of it.
Each year, kids of all ages come out to Norwood Recreation's Halloween in the Park to be frightened out of their wits. But it's all in fun. These are just volunteers in costumes. There's never any real danger here. Or is there? You're about to meet Father Mike Perenick, who found out the hard way that real danger can strike during even the most mundane, ordinary circumstances.
I was saved from death. I remember the day as clear as a bell. I was in Norwood visiting a doctor, and as I have done on many occasions, I go and visit my old room in the seminary in the North Wing. And I would go there just, you know, at that time I was chaplain at Children's Hospital, and I had other hospitals where a lot of death, a lot of dying, and that's my place to get away. No one would know that I would go there. So what I would do is I would walk up those long steps, and it really looked like Castle Dracula. There were cobwebs everywhere, dust. Nothing had been done to this wing since my class closed the building in 1981. So for 13 years, it's that vacant up there. But I would go there and pray, meditate, look out the window, just think of life. This one day on March 22nd was different. Went up the steps, down the corridor, and at the end of the corridor, I got a beep on my voice beeper. See, back then it was voice, and it was very garbled. The voice sounded insistent, determined. And I thought, oh, this must be Children's Hospital. This is before I had a cell phone. So I looked at my watch, and it was 1:45 in the afternoon. I went back down the steps into my car, went to the local gas station, and I called Children's Hospital. They didn't call me. The old Providence Hospital, Mercy Mount Airy, they didn't call me. St. Francis St. George Hospital didn't call me. None of the places where I worked at the time had beat me. Who was this? So I get back in my car. I said, I'm going to go back up to my room. So I drive up, and I look at the grassy knoll, and the building that I'm supposed to go to isn't there anymore. And I'm rubbing my eyes like, wait, that wing was just there 20 minutes ago. At 1:45, I left the building. At 1:53, 8 minutes later, the building collapsed. Look at that. Wow. I saw this, and all this dust and rubble. I went around and saw my bathroom sink hanging out of the wall. The floor was all gone, all had collapsed. What had happened? Water had been going around that foundation for 70 years. 70 years water was flowing around. It took 70 years for the weight of the building to be greater than what the foundation could hold. And that's why it collapsed. Just think if that had collapsed in 1955. 250 people could have died if they all were eating at that time, and that went right down to the cafeteria. 20, 30 tons of rubble. And I think about it, I would have been in that. You know, the first thought came to my mind, geez, no one would have been able to find me. I would have been fired from 5 jobs. It's the first thought went through my mind. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I could have died. I could have died. 8 minutes was the difference. Not only was I saved from death by 8 minutes and that beep, who had to have been maybe the Blessed Mother, maybe my grandmother who's in heaven. Who knows? It was a lady, I remember that. A miracle. I should have died March 22nd, 1994. I was not meant to go. I was not meant to go. It's a miracle. There are miracles that happen.
At Halloween in the park, the kids get treated to a costume contest. In the Norwood Middle School auditorium, kids can be treated to a slightly different Halloween experience.
I know about the auditorium being haunted because I was in Footloose last year, and me and my friend Clapton were walking upstairs and something fell. It was very creepy because there was no one here. We definitely ran out of here with a quickness because I thought there was someone behind me. Another time, the windows were all open. After we had left, we came back, all the windows are open. So all of us had to go around and we all had to close the windows, and it was very creepy. Things that I've heard from Mr. Gabbard, he was telling me how there's like a spot where there were footprints and we'd wipe them off, like, because it would seem like they were dirty. And when we'd clean them, they'd be gone, but the next day they'd appear to be there again, like they were wet, like they were wet footprints, like someone just stepped in water. He said that he was in here and he felt like someone was chasing after him, and he said that he heard things like upstairs, like right where the playroom is, kind of where you go back there and change. He said that he's never gonna come here in himself again. I actually went upstairs one time into like where the costume room is, and when I was in there, the door slammed behind me and it wouldn't open, and I had to have someone open it from the outside, and I was really creeped out because it was definitely propped open. So definitely, I bet you anything it's haunted. I kind of don't like being in here by myself.
I don't like you guys. I don't like you guys. I'm scared. I'm scared.
We hope you've enjoyed these true tales of mysterious Norwood. There are so many things in this world that are unexplained, so many riddles that are unsolved. Before we leave you, we'd like to share one more story with you. This one, so fantastic, so incredible, you may find it difficult to even believe.
Throughout the ages, haunting tales have been told of the unexplained, the paranormal, of ghostly visits from demonic apparitions and unearthly specters. But none are so horrifying as this story that actually happened to the residents of this house in West Norwood. This is the man who lives here. We will call him Don. Don has a tale to tell you that will make your spine shiver and your teeth chatter.
We had this lamp that would go on by itself. I would turn it off and I would come back in the room a little while later and it would be back on. Sometimes it would go off when it was on. I got a little bit concerned about it, so I unplugged that lamp and put it up in the attic, and
so this
we
is
just
not the lamp
bought
here?
it. No, this is the lamp that we got to replace that lamp, as a matter of fact.
This is not the lamp?
And I got a voltage tester, and I wasn't getting any deviation in the voltage coming out of the plug or anything, so I knew I didn't have a short in the house. So I plugged the lamp back in, and it was fine after that. So I figured, well, it must have just been I didn't have it plugged in right or something.
But he was wrong. Dead wrong.
I turned it off and went to bed. Well, the next day I came down, and the lamp was on. And I knew I turned that lamp off. This was getting kind of weird. I turned it off again. Well, when I came home from work that night, the lamp was on again. I figured something might be wrong with the lamp, so I'm going to leave it unplugged, and then when the weekend comes, I'll be able to take the lamp apart and see what the problem is.
But Don would soon find out that the lamp had other plans.
The next day, when I got up, the lamp was on. And I had it unplugged. So right away, you get that funny feeling on the back of your neck, you know, where you feel the hair starting to stand up and think, wow, is this lamp haunted? What's going on here? I went down to take a look at it, and lo and behold, it was plugged in again.
A thorough scientific investigation was conducted in an attempt to explain these mysterious happenings.
Through some investigation of the lamp, of the table it was sitting on, It's one of those lamps that all you have to do is touch it and it goes on. When the vibration of a truck going by or the wind blowing, it was right by the window, the wind blowing the curtain, making that table vibrate would make that lamp vibrate on and off. But we got a pretty good laugh at it when we found out we really didn't have a haunted house, we just had a bad lamp.
But how can a lamp that is unplugged inexplicably get plugged in by itself?
Evidently, before my wife went to bed, she had plugged it back in.
Shut up, Don. Many people in this day and age are quick to dismiss stories of the supernatural. But Don's wife has lived in this house her whole life. Let's see what she has to say.
I think you guys are crazy.
Maybe you're crazy.